Perfect. And we're live. Welcome, everyone. Happy Friday. I'm Ruby from the Feed Real Institute, and I'm here with Amy Renz from Goodness Gracious. Hi, Amy. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. This is wonderful.
So excited. Of course. I am so glad that Angela from CBD Dog connected us. I listened to your podcast with her after you and I had connected, and I was like, this woman is brilliant. Where has she been all of my life?
Thank you. Oh, that's huge. Kudos. Thank you.
No,
I have a lot of respect for what Feed Real is doing. It's you guys are, totally awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. So if you guys are joining in, we're going to be chatting with Amy, who is one of our speakers at the Feed Real Summit. She is the CEO and founder of Goodness Gracious, which is a company dedicated to crafting lightly cooked dog food. We actually finally met in person just a couple weeks ago at Super Zoo, which was really, really nice. And today we're going to be talking about a big topic, metabolic syndrome, which I think a lot of people don't know that they're aware of by that name, but are going to be familiar with a lot of the clinical signs and symptoms that we're going to be talking about today.
I agree.
Yep. So it's a big topic. So anybody that is just joining in with us, let us know where you're joining in from. I'm in San Diego, and Amy, you're in
Massachusetts.
In Massachusetts,
Boston area.
Yep. If you couldn't tell from her accent,
I try. I think it's getting worse with my age.
You just start not to care, and whatever comes out, comes out. Let us know where you're joining in from. And as you know, we normally go about 30 minutes chit-chatting about the topic. Amy's going to give us a little insights as well as to what she's going to be speaking about at the Feed Real Summit. And then after that, second 30 minutes, drop any questions you might have about this topic or general questions, maybe about Feed Real, about Goodness Gracious and the food that she carries. And then after that, we're going to see her in about 3 weeks.
We're going to go have some wine because it's Friday. And at least in here on the East Coast, it's going to be 5. So
that's right. You got 30 minutes. If you want to get started now, nobody's judging you.
Thanks.
All right. Wow. We got quite a few people in Maine. Oh, Massachusetts, Nashville, someone else from San Diego. That's Sav. All right. Well, Amy, before we jump in, I really meant it when I said, where has this woman been all of my life? Because I was just so shocked to come across your podcast with Angela on the Your Natural Dog and hear you talk about some of your background and everything that you're working on. So give our audience a little bit more about you. How did you get started with Goodness Gracious? Who are you? What's your story?
Sure. So I started Goodness Gracious, or the idea kind of came to me in 2007, and I was nowhere near dog food or pet food or even this industry. I mean, I grew up with dogs, but it's not until you get your own, I think, that you become mom, right? And you become so committed to their health and well-being and all of what's involved in that. And so for me, that was 2007. So up until that point, I was running a small software company. And so I got Grace in 2007. I got a sister for her about 6 months after that named Lula. And in 2007, that was when melamine, I know I'm older than probably most people on this call, but melamine was in so many foods and treats, and it was purposefully put there into wheat gluten to spoof the protein level tests, and because it can mimic protein. And so thousands and thousands of dogs got sick, died, tons of recalls. So that was 2007. Then in 2009, there was the chicken jerky issue, which we never really got to the bottom of, but a whole bunch of chicken jerky was putting dogs into kidney failure issues. And then at about that same time frame, there was a large pet food manufacturer whose employees got sick from exposure to mold and fumigants. And I was angry and scared and didn't know what to feed my puppies. And so I started making food for them at home. And I didn't know then nearly what I know now. And I know I made a ton of mistakes. But around that same time frame, I was learning that in our country, it's much better now, but we were euthanizing about 3 to 5 million companion animals a year because they just had nowhere to go. People failed them.
Yep.
And so I turned 40 in 2009, and I started asking myself some really pretty important questions like, who are you helping? And I did not have a good enough answer for myself. I mean, I was building shareholder value and I was helping people along a career path, but that just wasn't something that really made my spirit happy. And so I thought that if I could create a company that does something really great from a nutritional standpoint, whole food, species appropriate foods for our companion animals, and does so in a way that gives back to address this homelessness problem, then that would be a reason for a right turn. And so I built Goodness Gracious, committed that to that purpose. So today we make those whole food, 100% whole food, so no synthetic, species appropriate meals for dogs, now cats, and with a whole bunch of really important things to do along the way that improve our connection to the planet and each other. So we don't use any GMOs. We use mindfully sourced proteins, a lot less plastic, no styrofoam, more compostable materials, more green energy, and a vibrant culture of inclusion. And this is super important to me, and a charitable give back to community animal causes that amounts to half of our profits. So
wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. It feels like a lot some days, but then when your purpose and your passion line up, it's not work.
How do you, when you say you're giving back to the community to help with dog homelessness, how are you specifically doing that?
Right. So a lot of the charities that we donate to are picked by the stores that carry our products, and we donate at a community level. So it's money, it's product mostly, and so we're not giving to the really, really large organizations that don't really need the help of a small company like us. I mean, they're much, much bigger than we are, but it's the local community ones, the ones that are all volunteer and that really need some assistance. And so that's where we direct our funds.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you guys do a lightly or gently cooked food, and, you know, Feed Real, we're proponents of fresh food. We talk a lot about raw diets because that's what's familiar to us and from when we started. But I have a lot of respect for people who take the time to actually cook the food. I just say I'm the lazy feeder. I just take it out of the fridge and feed it. Is there a specific reason you chose to go the gently cooked route?
So a couple of reasons. It was what was introduced to me by my holistic veterinarian who provided the framework for the recipes that we make. We're a licensed and inspected human food facility, so we can't really deal in raw food so much. And in some levels, cooking can improve some qualities in the food, believe it or not. So like we like using some green vegetables, and those things aren't really used throughout the industry, but we like them for a number of reasons. Part of it, metabolic syndrome. And so those things are better digested when they're lightly cooked. We don't cook everything, all of our ingredients, because you don't want to cook all of those things. And we use steam. So it's a light cooking method. So it doesn't introduce the advanced glycation end products and that browning that happens, which causes a whole bunch of heat-induced toxicants that are not good for our dogs. But so we use steam. We cook some ingredients. We cook each one separately. We don't cook our fish oils, for instance. We don't cook our seeds. We don't need to cook some of our fruits. So we can still maintain the antioxidant capability of those things. And certainly by not cooking things like fish oil, you're not introducing ales, right? Oxidation products that come around. So that's kind of how we got on the path of gently cooked. And it's been super. We get really, really great feedback from our customers. And I think in some ways it's a gateway to raw too. I love raw food. I think it's it's raw, gently cooked, freeze dried, right? They're super options. Anything that gets somebody away from or helps them make that transition from ultra processed foods to real foods is a good choice in my book.
Yep. I agree completely. I'm actually wearing
I love it. Yay.
Away from the ultra processed.
I almost wore mine.
I know. I have to dress up. You in my story this morning because I was like, I wonder if she's going to wear the same shirt. That would be really cute. Yeah. Yeah, so away from the processed foods and towards the fresh, real food. What's your most popular product?
Oh gosh, you know, it's our gently cooked food, and I'd say our turkey and our beef are two really top movers. Turkey, especially in the summertime, because it's more of a cooling protein. I don't know where there's scientific research on that. But there's certainly a whole boatload of research in life, right? Yeah. That shows us those kinds of things. And so, and then beef, you know, I kind of think beef is a little bit more warming than turkey, but it's really like flavorful. I would eat it and I'd eat all of them, but I'd eat, you know, it smells really great and it's super juicy. So I think people that would normally might pick raw might think, oh, this one kind of looks like my raw. And
yeah, that's interesting. Did someone from my team reach out to you about turkey being a cooling protein?
Oh, Kay. I heard.
Yes.
I heard. Yeah. Yep. I heard from Kay.
Well, I'm going to give some background for everyone that's listening because we can, because we have time. So in traditional Chinese medicine, you have your cooling proteins and your warming proteins. And for the longest time, turkey, for whatever reason, was listed as a warm or a hot protein, meaning that it has some inflammatory properties. So if you have a dog that runs warm or is often triggered by inflammatory foods, and you probably want to steer clear of it. And I learned this actually from Angela, and I couldn't pinpoint the source, which is why I asked Kay to reach out to you, because I know you said turkey is cooling. I think there was a translation from German to English of a traditional Chinese medicine approach that was incorrectly translated. That said that the turkey actually was supposed to be listed as cooling, but for whatever reason, it went under warming proteins. And so that is when everyone got really, really confused, and the internet is free. And, you know, you get one person decided and everybody copies it from there. The other thing that I read about was that in the history of traditional Chinese medicines, there have been different dynasties, right? Different people in power. And so you kind of followed whatever that dynasty said. And I think where the confusion lies is that wild turkeys that are out and about and sort of roaming, kind of like our pasture-raised chickens, right? They're at their free will eating and considered cooling proteins. But when you put them into that factory farm settings, like the Jenny O's, right? The Purdue's and where, you know, the turkeys are just squeezed into a very small setting, very, very stressed, that they then turn into a warming protein. So I don't know if there's an actual source or citation, but nowadays we're going back to saying that turkey is a cooling protein. Did you know any of that?
I did not know that about the lost in translation piece. No, not at all. So, yeah. My experience. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No. It was just no, I'm good. Go for it.
I could have totally made all of that up, but somebody told me that I trusted, and that's why I'm sharing with you guys. Because
all right.
And here's the truth. We really don't know that much about food to say that if all of the nutrients that we needed, you know, could be in one place, like if we could make a kibble for humans because it was so good for us, wouldn't we be eating that too? You know, we just don't know what our bodies need. We know fresh food is best, but we're kind of learning as we go.
Right. My veterinarian says something that, you know, I use from time to time, and it's like, the more rigidity with which I approach food or pet food, the more humble pie I must eat.
Yes, yes,
So,
very true.
all right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to jump into metabolic syndrome. I actually want to open up the floor from our guests to start asking questions about this, because I think this is a term that's not familiar to a lot of people. So feel free, guys, to jump into this conversation. We'd love to hear from you. Amy, this is your topic. So give us the down low. What is metabolic syndrome?
Yeah. So metabolic syndrome is body weight is at the center of it, right? So if I could talk for just a second about why weight is so important and what's happening in humans and in our companion animals with regards to weight. So, you know, no shame zone, right? Just calling it out. As a culture, we have a problem. We are fat and we're getting fatter, right? 7 out of 10 Americans are overweight or obese. 6 out of 10 of our dogs and cats are overweight or obese. And that's been a trend that's been happening for the last couple of decades. The Association for Pet Obesity Prevention has reported it. They've said, even, and most recently, this was surprising to me, that about a third of pet parents with an overweight or obese pet have normalized their body condition, right? I mean, they look at their chunky animal and they think, oh, they're perfect, right? Or they're too thin. And the other surprising thing that I read recently in the report was that of the parents who have tried to get their pet to lose weight, they've tried 3 things, right? They've tried measuring out their portions, they've tried reducing calories, and they've tried increasing exercise, right? Diet and exercise. And yet they've still failed to get their pets to lose weight. So to me, that points that there's something in the bowl or there's something happening inside the body that is making things go haywire, right?
Yeah.
So, and we know about chronic disease, right? We know that chronic disease is on the rise. Pets are living shorter lives. Dr. Kendra Pope, who I'm surprised, I would be shocked if she hasn't been on your
Not yet.
Your lives. Okay. Well, she's one of 3 practicing integrative veterinary oncologists in the country. And she says that the number of newly diagnosed cancers is 5 times higher in dogs than it is in humans. And I just pulled up today this really kind of interesting thing, which was reports of pet health insurance claims that are obesity-related claims, right? And so the number of obesity-related claims for our pets has gone up by 40 to 50% in the last 5 years. These, I don't know if you can read it, but like these are the top ones for dogs. Yeah. So, you know, you've got arthritis, bladder, urinary tract disease, liver disease, low thyroid hormone, torn ligaments, diabetes, diseased disc of the spine, chronic kidney disease, heart failure, and high blood pressure as the top 10. Number 6, diabetes in there. Yeah, your diagnosis may cost you $3,500 or so, and the insulin on an annual basis may cost you $1,500, which diabetes, by the way, figures prominently into metabolic syndrome. But, you know, the real question, right, is what the true cost is for a sick family member. And
sure,
what you give out of your heart to make them better, right? And where you go to get your time back with your companions. So metabolic syndrome is this vicious cycle of chronic disease that fuels more chronic disease, and weight is at the center of it. It is a cluster of biochemical and physiologic abnormalities that put a body at risk for obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. There are 5 key indicators. Conventionally speaking, there are 5 key indicators of metabolic syndrome, right? First one, belly fat. So fat around the middle, high blood sugar, high blood pressure, high triglycerides, and abnormal cholesterol levels. So we can no longer think of fat as just this piece of luggage that we carry around with us. And, oh, there's some energy for a rainy day, right? Or I'm going to go run a mile now. I'll use some of that belly fat. Fat is an endocrine organ. It has the biologic capacity or capability to regulate energy, but it also has the metabolic machinery to communicate with distant organs throughout the body, including the central nervous system and the brain. So the more overweight you are, the more of these pro-inflammatory things circulate in your body that cause insulin resistance. So those pro-inflammatory things are things like hormones and cytokines, which are little proteins responsible for cell signaling, and free fatty acids. Insulin resistance then is, insulin is that hormone that's produced by the beta cells in your pancreas that's responsible for regulating regulating blood sugar. And insulin resistance is when the cells in your body don't respond to insulin like they should. And so they consequently don't take up that sugar or that glucose. Normally it would get stored like in your liver or in your muscles. So when you have high blood sugar, it damages your blood vessels, and it damages your blood vessels everywhere. So it damages the blood vessels in your brain, and you start to get mood and behavioral and cognitive disorders. It damages the blood vessels that feed your kidneys and the little nephrons, the filters in your kidneys. So you start to see kidney issues, kidney disease, kidney dysfunction. It damages the little blood vessels that feed your nerves. So you start to see neuropathy. It damages the blood vessels around your heart. And so you start to see heart disease. When you have too much sugar in your blood, your body says, oh, I've got to store that now. So let me store it as fat. And it stores it as fat in your liver as one place. And you start to get non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is the liver's way to manifest insulin resistance. And non-alcoholic fatty liver disease puts a body at risk for liver cancer. Your body also stores it as belly fat, right? So now you were once overweight with a whole bunch of kind of inflammatory things happening, and now you're more overweight with more inflammatory things happening. And those things that are firing off and causing all kinds of dysregulation start to dysregulate the way that your body makes fat and breaks down fat. And so you start to see more free fatty acids. You start to see triglycerides in your blood. You start to see cholesterol in your bloodstream. Cholesterol causes plaque, right, in your bloodstream, in your arteries. And now you've got you've got arterial sclerosis. You've got high blood pressure. High blood pressure fuels more kidney dysfunction. So this is kind of that way that it feeds on itself, right?
Yeah. No, it's if I didn't know that was the list that you read was from pet insurance companies, I would have thought that you were talking about human metabolic disease.
Right.
And it's mirroring, and it's quite shocking. And something that I think about a lot, we go to these veterinary conferences, and often when an ailment is discovered, diet is almost never part of that conversation. And it just dawned on me talking to you that neither is weight. Nobody's like, well, how's it feeling around the rib cage? Can you feel, the last two ribs, or is your dog got a little tuck? And I think, I don't know do you think it's like veterinarians following charts that say, oh, you're a lab and you should weigh around 75 pounds and just kind of going by that range? Or why do you think that's not part of the conversation?
That's a really good question. That I think back to that study done by the Association for Pet Obesity, right? And they said it was almost half of pet parents spoke with their vet about their dog's weight. But whether or not that translated to what are you feeding, it did not really go into that. And I think that part of that conversation, I think if you go into a practice and you're fortunate to have a holistic veterinarian to talk to, they're going to really engage with you on the importance of real food. If you're talking to a veterinarian that might be more conventional in their approach, I don't think that they've kind of come along in that process, right? Or that to learn more about real food. And so when they're talking with their pet a pet parent or a client about my dog being overweight, maybe they just don't have good choices to give them, because at the end of the day, all they're really thinking is Mars and Purina and Hills and, oh, let's put you on a prescription diet. And
yes,
I know how you feel about prescription diets. Pretty much how I feel.
Yeah. And I want to talk about that. I mean, we have to talk about how some of this commercially prepared food ties into all of this metabolic syndrome. I just saw Dolce's Legacy's comment here that I want to pull up, because I think this it's so true. She says, my biggest pet peeve is weight. And I see with my working breeds, how do I bulk up my 4-month-old? And we have a real issue with correlation for big versus obese in our society. And I see it all the time with the working breeds. They're like, they just want to get real big and buff unnaturally and too fast and too soon. It breaks my heart to see some of those improper growth and deformities so early on.
Right. That's a really good question. And, I've talked with, so back up just one quick second. When we make the food we make is for adults only, right? We don't make an all life stage food. And the reason why we don't do that is because to make the AFCO nutrient profile for all life stages doesn't exist in nature. And so you can't make it without synthetics. And we have a hard line at synthetics. So, so the question about young pups, right? Young pups do need some extra energy food, right? I mean, there's a lot going on. So if you've got a problem with a young pup not getting big enough, right? Then appropriately chosen carbohydrates or fats are the two ways to add weight onto a dog. So if you're looking at fats like omega-3 fatty acids, right? They're wonderful for brain development in puppies. And so maybe you're looking at adding and supplementing some more of those things. I don't think we should be afraid of plant matter, right? Especially like green vegetables. Now, but green vegetables aren't going to bulk up a puppy. You're going to need something like maybe sweet potatoes or some carrots in there. Things that are clean from a pesticide, herbicide viewpoint, and something that's going to give energy to the dog. Carbohydrates, don't get me wrong, are a huge source of energy. It's just whether or not it's appropriate once they get to be adulthood.
Yep. Agreed. So how do commercial diets affect health in relation to metabolic syndrome?
Right. So there are a lot of things that go into commercial diets, and I'm talking about ultra processed kinds of diets, so kibbles and canned feeds. At the summit, we're going to talk about a whole boatload of those things, kind of in 5 different categories. But I'll highlight maybe a couple to talk about here as they relate to metabolic syndrome. Glyphosate is so chemicals being one of those categories, right? So glyphosate is AKA Roundup. And we use a ton of it in this country. So about a third of U.S. cropland is treated with glyphosate. It's 300 million acres. The permissible levels for humans in the United States is 6 times higher than what it is in Europe, right? And permissible levels for animal food can be anywhere from 30 to 100 times greater than humans. So glyphosate, we started using it in this country in 1979, and its use is accelerated with the advent of GMOs, right? No longer do we just apply it to GMOs, though. We apply it to a whole boatload of crops that to ripen them just before harvest. Those crops, about 85% of the glyphosate in this country is applied to 96% of the plant matter that goes into conventional pet food. So we're talking about corn, soy, wheat, dried beans and peas, beets, peanuts, potatoes. I'm missing a couple of sunflower. I'm missing a couple of other ones in there. But so, and if you throw in cotton and oranges and grapes into that mixture, you're going to account for about 100% of glyphosate, right?
Yeah.
So
and
those,
this
is
not just the ingredients that are going into the food. This is also what the animals are eating. Those proteins,
right. Although I'm not quite sure if glyphosate fed to or consumed by livestock is actually transferred into the tissues for when those animals are eaten by us or by another by our dogs and cats.
There is a correlation even from the processing aspect of those animals and where the fields that they're coming from. Like if you imagine in your grocery store, you've got your organic and your non-organic produce. They're right next to each other. You know what I mean? You're not.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's the same correlation from the animals and what they're eating. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So glyphosate, 13 researchers out of Europe in 2021 discovered that glyphosate administered to, or fed or eaten in the same at Europe's daily intake level, right? So again, 1/6 of ours disrupts the balance of gut bacteria through the same pathway or the same mechanism which that glyphosate kills weeds. So it is the weed killer of our microbiome. And about half of the bacteria in our gut is sensitive to glyphosate. But pathogenic bacteria, the bad guys in there, right, are very resistant to glyphosate. So we're destroying the good stuff, creating opportunities for the bad stuff. And then there was another study done quite some time before that. It was like 2014. And it looked at glyphosate application data and disease epidemiological data, and it cross-referenced the two of them. And if you have a 1, you have a perfect correlation. So what they found was there was a correlation of like 0.92 and higher for about 25 different chronic diseases, including 6 different types of cancer: diabetes, lipoprotein metabolism disorder, intestinal infections, inflammatory bowel disease, dementia, Parkinson's, autism. I mean, you name it. So, I mean, this stuff is really awful, and it fuels gut dysbiosis. And we'll talk, if we have time, we'll talk more about that. But anytime you have an acute or chronic health problem, it affects your gut. It affects the species that are living in your gut and what they produce, right? Those short chain fatty acids. And a lot of those things are really good for us, right? They reduce inflammation. They protect the lining of our gut. They are anti-cancer. They're anti-inflammatory. They reduce oxidative stress. So we're destroying our body's ability to fend off a whole boatload of insult and to help regulate our metabolism.
Yep.
The other thing I wanted to talk about in number 2, right? So that was glyphosate, our advanced glycation end products and ales, so ages and ales. So these are things that are produced when we heat food. And so they're produced when we cook, but they're also produced inside of our body. And basically it's a sugar and an amino acid that react in such a way to create an advanced glycation end product. And those things are cytotoxic, genotoxic, mutagenic, carcinogenic. They have the ability to disrupt our gut microbiome. They have an affinity for those beta cells in our pancreas that are responsible for releasing insulin. And they also, in hyperglycemic bodies, so ones that have high blood sugar, they produce endogenously more ages because they've got this extra sugar floating around, right? So they're producing their own little toxic chemicals inside the body. So a study done by oh God, I think it was Mars. I confuse Mars and Pune all the time, one guy to another. But Mars found that dogs eating kibble were exposed to 122 times the ages, or HMF, which is a particular age, on a milligram per kilogram basis. as humans, and dogs eating canned food, it was 169 times. So it's
Wow.
just,
This is like a self-funded study.
yeah, right.
And so what did they do about it?
They made some speculations as to why it was so high, and it had to do with how much they process stuff. So, right, I mean, so the stuff that goes into kibble is heated 4 or 5 times under pressure. Canned food is heated until the center of that can reaches 250 degrees, right? So it sterilizes it. But canned food is arguably higher too, because HMF tends to occur in a particular ratio with another age called CML. And that one is formed when fats oxidize in the presence of metal, right? So a metal can. So that metal can create CML. CML fuels the HMF that's in there, and we're just eating a cocktail or a soup of really awful or feeding it. Really, yeah. There you go.
Yeah. No, it's okay. So those are the 2 big things, 2 of the 5 at least, chemicals and in the way that the food is processed. That's really affecting metabolic syndrome and the trends, the cycle that we're seeing over and over in our pets. This is a good question. Actually, I'm going to bring this up. Camila asks, how can feeding fresh food contribute to weight loss?
Oh, I love you. Yay, how can it not? So I think about like when we go to when something goes wrong, right? We go to a doctor or we bring our dog to the vet, right? Something went wrong. And none of us go there and say, oh my God, please give me a drug, right? Don't give me a plant medicine. Please give me a drug. No, nobody does that, right? We want natural medicines because plants heal, right? And if plants have the ability to fix disease, they have the ability to prevent disease. So there are a boatload of really great choices, mostly kind of green vegetables, right? Green leafy vegetables that have phytonutrients in them that help to address metabolic syndrome in a number of different ways, right? They can reduce or help us with our insulin sensitivity and help us with insulin resistance. They can protect the beta cells in our pancreas or in our dog's pancreas and heal that and help them so that they can produce the insulin. They can help reduce inflammation. They can help reduce oxidative stress. They can help regulate how fats are made and broken down. They can help produce glutathione in our body, which is that master antioxidant that just does wonders. So more choices of green leafy. And I know that might be blasphemy in some schools of thought, but more green leafy vegetables in the diet are certainly going to help with regulating and supporting this issue that and fixing this issue that we know of.
And to add on to what you said earlier, which is if you see leafy greens on the ingredient panel of a food that's highly processed, you can assume that if it's not in its fresh food form, that it's probably directly contributing to the problem more than it's helping.
Exactly. So ultra processed. So interesting statistic. And you had to read a bunch of different places and cross-reference it all, like I did with that glyphosate and stuff to know about what plants, and 85% of glyphosate is applied to 96% of the plants. But there's some really interesting information out there. And of the 8.65 million tons of ingredients that go into pet food, 0.05% of it is a green leafy vegetable. The industry just does not use them.
No.
But to your point, Ruby, is that, yeah, if you see it on a bag of kibble or a can of, it's really just window dressing. Like there's nothing, and especially if it's below the salt, it's less than 1% of what's in there, right? So, but some of those phytonutrients actually do better and come out when there's some kind of gentle cooking process. So, quercetin, or depending on what side of the pond you come from, it's pronounced quercetin. But that is one that you find in like broccoli and spinach and kale and apples and red bell peppers and a bunch of other vegetables. And that one is pretty heat resistant. Studies show that it gets destroyed at about 300 degrees, but who cooks at 300 degrees, right? So all you really want to do is just kind of break down that plant matter a little bit so that it becomes more digestible. Just make it wilt or make it blanch it slightly. I found some interesting research that said that sulforaphane, which is another great one, right? I remember listening to Dr. Becker and Rodney talk about sulforaphane, and that's found largely in broccoli and broccoli sprouts. And that's really great for combating cancer. It's also really helpful in metabolic syndrome. And recent research has showed that lightly blanching that doesn't necessarily it doesn't destroy the sulforaphane, doesn't necessarily increase it, but what it does do is make it more bioavailable by kind of decreasing the things that might block the absorption of it. So there's I wouldn't be afraid to pick some of those green vegetables, lightly steam them or do something to them to make them more digestible, and you're going to get a whole boatload of nutrients in them that are going to help with metabolic syndrome. And also help with the gut, right? So because you need some kind of fermentable carbs and soluble fiber to help with to help produce butyrate, which is a short chain fatty acid that's really helpful for, as I mentioned before, for combating inflammation, and those things help your gut produce butyrate.
Yep. And, I know I'm wearing a Kiss Off kibble shirt, and a lot of us are fresh feeders here. I think if you're not at the point where you can yet transition from a ultra processed food, adding in these fresh foods are, they're going to be helpful. It's a journey. I think that a lot of us sort of take on our own time, because it's not easy. There's a whole lifestyle and budget and learning process to consider. So I don't want anyone to feel discouraged here that, you just got to upend everything and completely, change your life. But these small additions can be really, really helpful.
Right. I mean, even just replacing 10% or 20% of a processed pet feed diet with a raw egg and a handful of spinach, right? You're going to move in the right direction.
Yeah, 100%. I saw another question here that I thought was funny. Is counting calories for pets really necessary? I hate doing it for myself.
Oh, yeah, I'm afraid so. But, there's an interesting study looking at intermittent fasting, right? And that it's helpful for losing weight. And one of the reasons why it's suspected as being helpful is that it's almost synonymous with counting calories, right? If you're not feeding or not considering food 24 hours out of the day or 16 hours out of the day, you're only considering feeding during maybe 8 hours of the day, then it's necessarily or kind of by default reducing calories. So maybe you can look at it that way.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. I heard something interesting the other day. It might have been you on your live with Dr. Ruth Roberts. It was feed the dog, don't feed the bull. Was that you that said that?
Yeah, that was me. Yep.
I love that. And it's so true. I've got friends, very close friends of mine who, they joined their fresh food revolution for themselves, like the people path of eating a little bit healthier and making better choices at home far before I did. And I go to visit them and I still see a bowl of kibble sort of left, they're free feeding all day. And I'm like, I don't understand. How don't you see the connection from one to the other? Do you know anyone like that?
I do. Yep. Yep. And some of them are conventional veterinarians, but hey, we love everybody. And everybody gets there in their own time. But yeah, I see that. And it's, sometimes it's those conversations that you just can't have. Like, it's almost like who farted, right? Because nobody wants to talk about it. It just kind of stink up the room and we're going to move on from here. Right. Yeah. So yeah. Sometimes.
And I'm glad you brought up intermittent fasting as well, because that's another sort of controversial topic here of, when your dog, it doesn't have a has an upset stomach, you know, is it appropriate to withhold food for a short period of time and just offer water? I have like what I like to refer to is kind of an ancestral dog. He's old school. He self-regulates. When he's not feeling well, he simply skips his meal. He's like, no, I don't want that. And so I see naturally a lot of dogs will do it. What is your thought on fasting or withholding food when there's an upset tummy?
I agree with it. Don't throw something into the mix, right? My thought is to kind of give it 24, 48 hours to sort itself out, right? And if it doesn't, then okay, now we've got to, figure out, as long as they're maintaining hydration, then I don't really worry about them not eating in 24 to 48 hours. And a lot of times there's some good herbal solutions for some of that too. So it'll just help speed along that path of righting the ship.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly. Absolutely. What are you most excited about for the Feed Real Summit this October?
Me? What am I? Oh, I didn't know it was a question. Oh, yeah. Oh, everything. Oh my gosh. I'm excited to connect with pet parents and hear their stories and see if I can learn from them for sure, because nobody knows everything. And I have so much to learn, and also see if there's something that I might be able to contribute to them to help them with and have their dog live a long life. I'm super excited to hear Rodney and Angela and Ruth, Kay, and of course our whole panel of just amazing experts. Yep. So I'm pumped for the whole deal. Sign me up, man. Oh, I am. But
have you been to San Diego before?
No, I have not. Oh, kind of drove through it, so it doesn't count. So.
Yeah, no. Well, we'll have some time between AHVMA and the summit, so I can show you around.
I love that.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in on our chat. If you haven't got your tickets yet for the Feed Real Summit, they're available on the website. Snatch them up before they're all gone. We would love to have you here in San Diego to join us. Thank you, Amy, for your wonderful talk and telling everyone who you are. Look forward to seeing you in a few weeks.
Oh, me too, Ruby. Thank you. And thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.